Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast, and good morning to those on the West and the Central Coast. To those watching from other parts, Europe, Israel, we want to wish everyone a good evening. Today we have a man of incredible substance, a man that's lived through a lot of challenging, sleepless nights over the last 150 nights, who himself puts his own issues to the side and is looking after every other family of the hostages. Right now is doing us an incredible tova, a favor. He's on a march from Gaza to Yerushalayim with other families of hostages, making the case for the liberation of the hostages, for the freedom of the hostages. He's been to many countries. He's a man who's an incredibly loving father. He's a man who's just an incredibly caring Jew, caring Israeli. And we can't thank him enough for addressing us, for speaking to us. And that is our good friend Ruby Chen, who literally has taken time out of a march, has gotten to a place where he could put a machine there and he can address us. I'd like to hand it over to him at this point in time. Ruby, if you could share your story, the story of your son, and the story of October 7th with us, we'd be great, very appreciative.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I might start a bit before that, just talking about myself to put things into context. So my folks, Holocaust survivors, got to Israel somewhere in the 60s. They decided to move to the United States in hope of a better future for themselves and for their kids. So I grew up in New York City. So that's where the accent is. It's not from Montana. I'm from any other place. I like to say I'm the proud outcome of the New York public education system. Anybody here from Flatbush, give a yell or raise a hand. So at least I know we got some people here from the neighborhood. And we are a Zionist family. So my family went back to Israel and did Aliyah 1980 when I was 12. And I myself went to high school in Israel and did the IDF myself and did about 20 years of reserve duty. After the Army, went to NYU, spent some time there working with the Young Zionist Youth Foundation, bringing teenagers over to Israel, and started believing some of the things I was talking about how wonderful place Israel is. Met my wife. She is an Israeli, and she basically told me two things. If you want to date me, you come to my city, Netanya. And her dad is an airplane pilot in El Al, so she visited all over. And she basically said this is the best place to live. So as you understand, I have no negotiation skills. I live in Netanya, and I've been living in Israel mostly ever since. I have three sons. Eldest is actually in the IDF as well. He is in a security unit, intelligence unit under the Ministry of Defense. And Itay is 20. We marked his 20th birthday 2 weeks ago. And his younger sibling is alone, who had his bar mitzvah 1 week after October 7th, which was also a bit of a challenge what to do in that situation. Itay joined the tanks unit, Shirion, and on October 7th, he was stationed at a base on the border of Gaza. He and his team were caught by surprise. They were functional, meaning that they were active, doing what they were supposed to do. Some people say that they are Gibborei Israel, but after about an hour and a half, they were outnumbered and were captured, which I know in retrospect, when it actually happened, we got a message from him at 6:30 in the morning saying that the base, there's some missiles going over his head. That is not atypical to anyone that lives in the south of Israel, unfortunately. He was missing for a long time, and we did not know what was his fate. He was defined initially as missing in action, meaning nobody was able to physically identify him in the field. He was not in one of the hospitals, and he was not one of the deceased lists. And I am sure many of you are parents, if not all of you listening to me now. There's no adjectives to explain or describe the type of feelings that you go through, not knowing where your loved one is and not knowing if he's alive or not. And after a couple of days, we got a knock on the door from two Army guys, 6 o'clock in the morning. That's something that it's very difficult even more to explain, where we were notified that he was abducted and kidnapped. And ever since, we've not been able to get any sign of life or indication about his condition. I myself, as you understand, am a U.S. citizen, as well as Itay. I think it's important to note on October 7th, more than 40 U.S. citizens were killed. Today, we have 8 U.S. citizens that are being held captive. Out of them, 2 were killed and being held, and their bodies are being held by Hamas. And we have 6, to the best of our knowledge, living U.S. citizens. We were blessed to have an open communication channel with the White House, where after 2 days, Secretary of State Blinken met us. And after 4 days, President Biden got on a call with us, which is supposed to last maybe 15 minutes. But he actually wanted to explain to us that there was no other more important thing for him at that moment in time, and stayed on a call with us for an hour and a half, wanting to explain, where his heart is and how he put this as his priority, not just for the U.S. citizens, but for all the citizens that were captured. I've been spending most of my time shuttling between Tel Aviv and Washington, D.C. We, the U.S. families, have a special voice, and we have ability to meet congressmen, senators, policymakers, because we are U.S. citizens and have been impacting as much as possible our ability to keep this on the top of the agenda of the White House, as well as looking at this as a bipartisan issue where we speak to both sides of the aisle, which is important to mention as well, to make sure that everyone is on the same page and is doing whatever it can to help us. We, the IDF soldiers, operate as a team, meaning we go and do meetings as the IDF soldiers to Israeli ministers. We just came from a meeting now from Smotrich, the Minister of Economy, and, Minister of Finance. And we have a special voice here as well. And I'm glad that I have here the opportunity to talk to friends of the IDF, where the IDF is very close to us and is being supportive of us as much as possible. But it's always good to have new friends and having new ways to have people to help us. And if there's one call of action, I urge you, wherever you are, give a call to your congressman, give a call to your senator, ask them what are they doing to help for the release of all the 134 hostages. It's been 145 days. It's impossible to explain to you what that means. Each day is a living hell. And despair is here on my shoulder, wanting to tell me, come over to me. Life is much more easier. Just sit and do nothing. But we need to keep in fight. And as a New Yorker, what I learned from 9/11, we stand together. And that's also part of the Israeli DNA as well. We stand together and we fight. And when we have people like you behind us, that gives us energy to keep on fighting. So please do whatever you can to keep on supporting from wherever you are, helping us with the fight until we get our loved ones back home. I'll pause here if there's any questions.
So you're asking us specifically to reach out to our congressmen, our senators, anyone else of influence. Do you have any other requests of us?
From the IDF side, there's always support for the IDF families that are part of my new family of IDF soldiers that are being held captive. There are officers, there are people that are Hasidic, there are people from Tel Aviv, people from Haifa, it's Am Yisrael. And maybe we could take that offline exactly, where you could be supportive of us, the families that are being held hostage, and where we could get your support. There's also a large number of IDF families that unfortunately their loved ones were killed that also need some sort of support. That I think it's also maybe something to talk about offline, where the IDF could be, friends of the IDF could be helpful, because it's not a one-time thing, more of a process and a long-lasting type of item. And yeah, there's also Washington, not just Washington, but also Jerusalem, Doha, Germany, Berlin, and other places that FIDF could be helpful, that could help continue putting this at the top of the agenda and making sure that everyone is doing everything possible to get live hostages out. I don't want my kid back in the bag. I want him out alive. That means we need to get them out like yesterday, because today he is alive. I don't know if that's going to be the fact a week from now, a day from now, or an hour from now. That is why we are marching, to make sure that the government of Israel also understands we have no time. And we need the government to do whatever it can to get a deal. Not the best deal. This is not a used car where you need to get the best deal. You just need to get a deal, as many as possible living hostages out, because they are dying in captivity.
Thank you for sharing that. If it's possible, and again, if any of these questions you don't feel comfortable answering, please don't answer. The experience, you've committed your life to this, and you've been a leader in the hostage community. The experience for your wife, the experience for your sons. Can you describe that to us?
Yeah, so Itay is the sandwich. I don't know about you yourself. I myself am also the sandwich. He's the connector. And it's a very important function inside of the family. Moms, we I don't want to sound politically incorrect, but us men, we look at our kids in one way, and moms look at them in a different way. Like, she thinks of things like, okay, what is he wearing? Is he warm? Did he have something to eat? That's the type of thoughts that she has, and it's mind-boggling just to have a day pass by without knowing a simple fact: is he alive or not? And we as a family need to stay together, and we have support of very good people, neighbors that started to stand up and supporting us. But again, I go back to 145 days. I don't know how to explain, the energy just to wake up and do something. It's, not human. We need this ordeal to end, and we need the help of anybody that's willing to help.
The families that have come together, and I know that you have led and others have gone with you to Washington, have gone to other capitals across the world. Are you getting help from other members of Israeli society, the international community that's working with the families?
Yeah, so it's important to note that the state of Israel, when this happened, was in total shock and did not have the available infrastructure to support the magnitude of families that needed some sort of support system. At the beginning, we were 241 families. The state of Israel was in shock. I'll just compare to the United States for a second. So in the United States, under the president, there's an organization called SPIHA, Special President Envoy of Hostage Affairs, that is a functioning body with people with a playbook, and they know how to deal with victims of hostages. In Israel, there was nothing. And at the beginning, there was a guy, Gal Hirsch, that was nominated. Basically, he was a skeleton organization with nothing. And good people took initiative and created a civilian headquarter for the hostages. Beginning, it was a clearinghouse of information, just putting all the different databases together in order to help us understand what are the whereabouts of our loved one. And from there, it started to expand to more and more functions, such as helping and organizing delegations abroad, helping families figure out what to do. They have no homes, or they needed help and basic stuff just to get by, such as, okay, where does my kid go to school? What type of mental support do I get now? Who's talking to me? All those things were missing. And it's a voluntary organization. There are over 20,000 people in Israel and in all parts of the world that are supporting us, and we live off donations. And I must say that nobody saw it in this organization, that I am part of the committee that oversees all the activities, that when we built the budget initially, that we would be still looking at our budget 5 months after and thinking about Q2 2024. And we live off donations, and this is something that we also need some help. Unfortunately, this is an organization that wants to dissolve itself as soon as possible. But even if all the hostages come back, there still is a mission statement that needs to be fulfilled, and that is supporting the families the day after, which is also a process that is not going to end in a month or not even a year. So there's still a lot of things that the civilian organization that was put together by volunteers needs to continue to do to support the families.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. In terms of the sense you have of the nation being behind you, the nation being behind the other families, you feel the support, you feel the empathy, you feel the love. Just to let you know, on behalf of, we're speaking from American Jewry, but I believe it's true of the other parts of world Jewry. In synagogues throughout the length and breadth of this community, on a daily level, the Mishaberach is being said for the hostages. In cities across America, your son Itay and other pictures are being put up, very often being ripped down by enemies, but consistently being put up. It's true in Jewish day schools, it's true in Jewish community centers, and it's true in WhatsApp groups, that the names, the families, instead of them just being known as the hostages, they're trying to internalize and personalize the young men and the young women, the older men, the older women, the children that are still held in Gaza. And just to let you know that there's an incredible sense of care, there's an incredible sense of concern. And we want to thank you for first and foremost, telling people what they can do.
Yeah, I want to thank you for sharing that. I also, when I visit the United States, I go to synagogues on a Friday. I've been invited to various synagogues from New York to Washington and other places, and we feel the love and we feel the support. And I want to thank every single one of you for being on this call. And if I could, I would have given you a big hug to thank you for all that you've been doing. The only challenge, if you want to call it that, is the fact that the situation has somewhat been normalized, meaning, when it was day one, it was like, oh my God, then 7 days passed by, which is like a major thing. And then a month passed by. And then the 100-day mark happened. And now we're at 145, and it sounds like, okay, what's the difference between 145 days to 160 days to 250 days? And that normalization of not understanding the urgency is something that we need to convey to all the parties, as well as the US government. Like, you can't fall in love with the negotiation process. You need to cut a deal. And after 5 months, the IDF has done whatever it could. The politicians did whatever they could. And what we are demanding is get in the room, haggle it out, but come out with a deal that includes everybody. No one should be left behind, especially not IDF soldiers. that are at the forefront. Like, it doesn't make sense that they should be left behind. And I would even say, from a negotiation standpoint, if IDF soldiers are left behind, the state of Israel must probably pay as much as it paid for the 10, 15 soldiers that it did for the previous 150 or 200 hostages. So you need to have a deal for everybody. At least that's what we believe, and that's what we are marching for. And on Friday, we are actually marching, putting a showcase on the IDF soldiers, that all the people that do Miluim, reserve duty, will come and march with us together, focusing on the IDF soldiers.
Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you very much. And listen, please God, the nation's behind you, but please God that your son will return safe, will return healthy, will return psychologically sound. And so too is the case with all of the others. We know that some of the hostages are no longer alive, but those that we believe to be alive, please God, will return.
Thank you for saying that. I'll just say one last thing. The name of my wife is Hagit. So anyone that is doing candles on Friday, if you can please say on behalf of Itay Ben Hagit, I would very much appreciate it.
Itay Ben Hagit. Itay Ben
Thank
Hagit.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wishing you and wishing the other families not only a return of your children, a return of your family members, but that the impact on the country of this march that you're in the middle of will hopefully have a transformational effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you. Thank you.